The story of the First World War is a story of major powers with large armies, industrialized, outwardly modern, in a very competitive environment.
The armies that went to war in 1914 were still equipped with a variety of old weapons and uniforms which were completely inappropriate for the kind of conditions that they were going to find. By the end of the war, every army that had fought had put their men in decent uniforms, had given them all metal helmets, provided them with machine guns and new equipment. There was a transformation. The armies in 1919 were unrecognizable from the armies of 1914. It's often argued that the First World War simply consisted of generals pushing the men forward against machine guns of almost no purpose. This was the chief strategy: send men forward against machine guns and barbed wire.
What generals wish to achieve through committing themselves to battle is victory on the battlefield, is very often a decisive breakthrough. And it is only when they fail to achieve that that they then try to explain what they're doing in terms of wearing out the enemy.
I think there's no doubt that all those generals who believed in the offensive, they did underestimate at first how powerful the defense would be. And it's difficult to see why they did, because machine guns, mines, barbed wire, trenches, they were all in place very quickly in the First World War. But for years they had this conviction that if you just found the right way of opening up that defense, you could win the war.
If you look at armies in 1918, they bear more than a passing resemblance to the armies of 1939-45. And that in itself, I think, is evidence of how much of a forcing ground, technologically and tactically, the First World War is.
They all innovated, of course. It wasn't just that one army was better than another. I think the most important innovation was the introduction of mass air power. On the Western Front, the characteristic format was, of course, the long trench. It would have bunkers and shelters and so on. It would be protected by mines and barbed wire and endless machine guns. It was soon realized that the only way really to get past these trenches would be to find some kind of weapon that could run over them, run through them. And that's why the British, of course, developed the tank. It started, of course, in a very small way, but by 1918, tanks had really begun to come into their own.
This is a total war by 1917-18. And what happens at the front and what happens in terms of production both contribute to the outcome of the war. And indeed, fighting, of course, is in part about the application of resources, just as the whole business of the economic blockade is in part directed towards diminishing the resources you need to fight with. So you need to view these things as feeding off each other rather than as being alternatives.